said that the President reiterated the message of tolerance and the importance that this is not a campaign against Islam or Arab nations generally. Has it been communicated to the administration from those nations, from that part of the world that you've been talking to recently, that is a highly critical thing for the President to do, not just once, but over and over and over again? If so, why? We are a country that judges people not by their religious beliefs or by their color, but by the fact that we're all Americans. So that was the first part of the message. The second part of the message is that we have a lot of friends around the world who are Muslim. We have countries that are long friends of the United States who are of the Islamic faith, and the President wanted to be very clear that this is not a war of, quote, civilizations, that this is not a war against Islam. This is a war against people who in many ways pervert what Islam stands for. Islam stands for peace and stands for nonviolence, and he wanted to make that very, very clear. Yeah, sure.
Islam and Islamic civilization are unique in their stance toward non-believers, and that Islam is the only religion in the world that has a developed doctrine, theology, and law that mandates violence against unbelievers. That there are peaceful Muslims, there are Muslims around the world who are moderate, who live in harmony with their non-Muslim neighbors and have no intention of ever waging war against them in any way. But the fact is that they have a very slim justification for their own peacefulness within the Islamic sources themselves. And they are only at peace with their neighbors insofar as they are either ignorant of what Islam teaches about how Muslims should behave toward unbelievers, or they have explicitly rejected, consciously rejected, those elements of Islam. There are, in short, peaceful and moderate Muslims, but no peaceful and moderate Islam. The idea that Islam is a religion of peace, however, is paradoxically enough held even by the most violent and radical of Muslims. Sayyid Qutb, the Egyptian Muslim theorist, whose writings are revered by radical Muslims today, by terrorists today, he wrote and insisted that Islam is a religion of peace. When you study his writings, it becomes clear that he meant that Islam is dedicated to establishing the hegemony of Islamic law over the world. When that hegemony is established, peace will reign in the world. Therefore, Islam is a religion of peace.
But the problem is the peaceful Muslims don't understand the edicts that comes out of the jurisprudence of Islam. If you look at the interpretation of these verses in Al-Azhar University, in the Islamic Sharia schools in Jerusalem, in Jordan, in Syria, and Damascus, all throughout the Middle East, the jurisprudence of Islam clearly state, emphatically, that the verse of the sword made null and void all the peaceful verses. And what does the verse of the sword say?
Then when the sacred months have passed, then kill the mushrikun, unbelievers, wherever you find them, and capture them and besiege them, and prepare for them each and every ambush. But if they repent and perform as-salat, the Islamic prayers, and give zakat, alms, then leave their way free. Verily, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful.
Kill them when you see them, wherever you find them. This is not an allegoric kill. It's a literal kill. It's the killing of Zarqawi right in front of the camera. It's the lynching that you see in Ramallah. It's the killing of over a million Sudanese in Sudan, cutting the hands and the feet from opposite sides. And here's the dilemma. The peaceful verse, even the peaceful verse that is quoted, even by Bush, the verse goes as follows. Whoever kills a life without just cause or for doing mischief in the land, then as he killed the entire earth. You'll find the same verse in the Judeo-biblical tradition. But most Westerners never skip after that verse, which makes very clear, but as those who do mischief in the land, then cut their hands and their feet from opposite sides and crucify them, literally. And that's what you see what happened in Afghanistan. That's what you see what happened in Sudan. A huge amount of crucifixions and killings and beheadings and amputations and public assassinations. They really want to revive Islam as it used to be. This is why they call it Islamic fundamentalism.
The recompense of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and do mischief in the land is only that they shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and their feet be cut off on the opposite sides, or be exiled from the land. That is their disgrace in this world, and a great torment is theirs in the hereafter. The Prophet cut off the hands and feet of the men belonging to the tribe of Arina, and did not cauterize their bleeding limbs till they died.
There is no assurance of what is known in Christianity as salvation and insurance of being saved and guaranteeing going to heaven. However, there are certain things that can help. So if a Muslim, for instance, died while he was practicing jihad, he is supposed to go to paradise.
In the Islamist thinking, the assurance of your salvation is dying as a martyr, in accordance to the verse in the Quran, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٌ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Do not think that the ones who die in the cause of Allah in jihad are dead, but are living. So this assures salvation.
This is the calculus behind modern suicide bombing. Many people will say, modern Muslim advocates will say, that Islam forbids suicide, and this is plainly dishonest, because all the advocates, all the defenders of suicide bombing in the Islamic world start out by saying this is not suicide. This is, the intention of the person is not to kill himself. The intention of the person is to kill others, and that is sanctioned because it is Islamic jihad. And if in the process they are killed themselves, that's an unavoidable consequence of their actions, and they will be rewarded with the reward of martyrs in paradise.
Quran is quite clear about the heavenly reward for a jihadist who falls fighting in the path of Allah. He will be granted instant access to paradise, and a Muslim paradise is an extremely sensual one. It is full of houris, of black-eyed beauties that will await the martyr, and the gratification that follows is eminently unsuitable for family audience.
The Quran contains no guarantee of paradise except for those who slay and are slain in the cause of Allah.
Verily, Allah has purchased of the believers their lives and their properties, for the price that theirs shall be the paradise. They fight in Allah's cause, so they kill others and are killed. Then rejoice in the bargain which you have concluded. That is the supreme success.
In other words, the guarantee of paradise is for people who are killed while they are killing, to establish the hegemony of Allah or Islamic law in the world.
Jihad in Islam can be spiritual or physical. The spiritual jihad is striving to be a better Muslim. But also there is a physical part of jihad that you cannot take it away from Islam.
Jihad in Islam means struggle. That's what the literal meaning of the word, struggle. But what the West doesn't understand is that the hadith, the compilation of the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad of Islam, there's almost about 100 hadiths regarding jihad. And if you look at every single one of them has the sword, war, or a military effort. And in the end of the expedition, jihad expedition, he said, now I resort to the jihad within, the jihad that is within, the self-struggle. And as a matter of fact, I had this dialogue with an Islamist one time. He says, Walid, come on, tell the West that jihad means struggle. I said, yes, it does mean self-struggle. You're right. Jihad does mean self-struggle. But so does Mein Kampf. Mein Kampf means my struggle. In the same fashion, the Islamists look at jihad.
It is a very dangerous element of the Islamic teaching because this instant gratification through martyrdom is an attractive concept. And by the way, when the so-called martyr operation is carried out by Hamas, what is announced from the minarets of mosques is not the death of so-and-so who carried out the attack, but the wedding of so-and-so to the Houris. In other words, they immediately make the implication that far from having to cry over his disappearance, over the end of his physical life, his parents should be happy and celebrate and throw a party because their son is now being not only transported into heaven, but greeted there with these voluptuous beauties.
Shaheed, the word shaheed, means witness. To witness, to testify. To testify there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. And you die as a shaheed for that cause. You're a witness. You're considered a witness, a martyr. And a martyr becomes glorified. Your family will glorify you after you die. To a Muslim fundamentalist living in the Middle East, I had to be initiated. I had to basically either kill my first Jew or destroy my first Zionist infrastructure. I had to prove, beyond shadow of a doubt, that I was worthy. And there are ample amount of students, teenagers, men, who are willing to die as suicide martyrs, willing to put explosives. The martyr application is filled. There are many applicants. There's not enough bombs to fulfill the applicants. And to get on one of those missions, indeed, you must have been chosen. You must have been really good. You must have been violent enough. You must have been going out on every demonstration in the streets of Jerusalem or Bethlehem or our village. You must have shown yourself worthy of a greater operation. So when I explain what I've done and people have seen me in the community and I was worthy, I ended up in prison, I was, of course, recruited. And I remember Mr. Mahmoud al-Mughrabi. He was proud to have planted 15 bombs, killed many Israelis. And he was being bailed out by a Jewish Israeli lawyer. He was back right in the street. So you find your bomb maker and you apply. You say, look, I want to join. I want to do my first martyr operation, planning a bomb or whatever. And you need connection. So I found my connection. I rendezvoused with this guy in Jerusalem, in Shara' Bab al-Wad. And he built this explosive charge with a timer and a loaf of bread. And I had to smuggle it from the Temple Mount under the auspices of Al-Waqf department. Al-Waqf police is the Islamic police appointed by the government to watch over the holy sites. Them knowingly that I had explosive charges smuggled me so I can escape from the checkpoints. And there, I carried my explosive charge from Jerusalem to Bank Leumi Israel in Bethlehem. I was supposed to put the explosive charge at 6 p.m. exactly. I was supposed to have this explosive charge in my hands at 6 p.m. exactly. 5 to 6, I saw some Arab children running around, and I didn't want to kill any Arabs. So I decided to place the explosive charge on the roof. I tossed it on the roof. At 6 p.m. it went off, and there was this big explosion. I looked behind me, I see this thick black smoke coming out of the building. And I started running. That's the moment I first got a glimpse of the reality of killing. I thought people have died. And I remember I didn't sleep for 3 days, constantly worried that I've killed somebody. Even terrorists have a reality check that you kill or you're about to die. You can sense it. This is why in Israel, the nature of finding out a terrorist suicide bomber is to look at their eyes. They'll have these glossy eyes. They're sweating profusely. They're not paying attention because in their mind, they're about to go. And you weigh the reality of what, now you're going to die. And many times I've been in this situation where I had thought that I was going to get killed, shooting back and forth as we stoned at the Israelis and they shoot back at us and things like that. I was face to face with death. When you think in your mind you're going to die, you struggle between the requirements of your Islamic upbringing and between the reality that you value your life. And at some point, one has to outweigh the other. And for a Muslim fundamentalist, we always chose death. We always chose the suicide. My cousin died on his way to Ben Yehuda Street, and he got killed. He died. I had people and relatives die and fighting the Israelis. And as I look at it now, I think, what a waste. What a waste of life.